Obi-Wan Kenobi defeating the Jedi Chosen One in single combat is one of the most impressive and awe-inspiring feats in all of the lore. But how exactly was Obi-Wan able to do this according to himself? And what was Obi-Wan Kenobi's key to his ultimate success? Greetings again, acolytes of the galaxy and students of the Force, back to the archives. Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi were brothers both in arms as well as best friends. Their exploits during the Clone Wars and in the 10 years since their meeting and Qui-Gon Jinn's death has brought them closer than ever. And as of the time of Revenge of the Sith, their friendship was seemingly inseparable. This, of course, made it all the more emotional when Anakin turned to the dark side and Obi-Wan was forced to face down his brother. But by all accounts, Anakin should have won this fight. Power level aside, if we're speaking strictly from mentality, then Darth Vader definitely had the advantage on Mustafar. And yet, it was Kenobi who came out on top in the end, and he was the one who walked away mostly unscathed. When we examine the facts, this should not have been possible. However, thanks to the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, we know exactly what Obi-Wan was thinking when he was able to overcome Darth Vader, and Obi-Wan reveals the true reason he was able to defeat the Chosen One in their fateful duel. The largest factor that many people attribute to Obi-Wan's success usually has to do with the fact that Obi-Wan knew Anakin so well from their many years of fighting, as well as training alongside one another. Their styles were also the perfect fit, as Anakin took the more aggressive Gemso, while Kenobi used the completely defensive Surisu. They stalemated for a majority of the battle when it came blade to blade. However, Anakin still had a notable power advantage in this department. As the Chosen One, Anakin was far more powerful than Obi-Wan could ever hope to be. This was due to the fact that Obi-Wan did have a much lower midichlorian count than most Jedi commonly would, which doesn't necessarily impact his power level so much as it does his natural potential. Anakin's potential was pretty much limitless though at this point, and he had already surpassed Kenobi. Adding fuel to the fire, Count Dooku had taken out Kenobi in their final duel, when Anakin was victorious. Anakin had already killed many powerful Jedi, and his power was rapidly growing the longer he steeped in his new abilities. Even Darth Sidious said to Yoda that soon Vader would be more powerful than either of them, indicating that the Dark Lord was pretty much banking on the idea that by the end of the Purge, Skywalker would soon be on the level of a Sith Lord with only a few rudimentary lessons in the dark side under his belt, and would soon become a Sith Master. This also was not a change that was happening gradually. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Anakin's powers had doubled. Not to mention that the fact that the longer Anakin fights, the stronger he becomes. We learned this at the beginning of the novel during his fight with Dooku, who realized that Anakin was becoming stronger as they were fighting, causing Dooku to expend more force power into his strikes and evasions. Obi-Wan could hold out against Vader at the blade, but it would have been a matter of time before he wore down and made a single fatal flaw. But as we know, Obi-Wan managed to take advantage of the fact that Surisu is by nature very energy conservative, so Kenobi was able to hold out much longer until he found a suitable strategy to end the fight. All of this makes sense on a technical level, but let's talk about how it should have been in Anakin's favor on a mental level. The biggest thing to understand about Mustafar in the duel was that this was deeply personal. Jedi aren't meant to have attachments because when they get personally invested in a fight, it becomes a distraction, and they violate the third tenet of the Jedi Code. There is no passion, there is serenity. However, the Mustafar fight was all passion. The duel between Yoda and Sidious was symbolic, a symbolic fight of the Jedi and the Sith, winner take all. But concerning the Mustafar duel, the Revenge of the Sith novelization states this. This was not Sith against Jedi. This was not light against dark, or good against evil. It had nothing to do with duty, or philosophy, religion, or morals. It was Anakin Skywalker against Obi-Wan Kenobi. Personally, just the two of them, and the damage that they had done to one another. Both Anakin and Obi-Wan were deeply invested in the duel. The problem with this, though, is the fact that it makes Vader stronger and Kenobi weaker. Skywalker finally lets himself go and is able to feel all the passion and pain he desired to feel for so long. For a Sith to be invested in a duel feeds their power. Anakin's tunnel vision aside, the ferocity that the dark side would grant him for giving himself over to his passions should have been enough to obliterate Kenobi. On the flip end, this passion weakened Kenobi. This was his brother, the boy that he helped raise, Qui-Gon Jinn's dying wish. He was with Anakin at his best and at his worst. Anakin had saved Kenobi's life. Anakin was arrogant to be sure, but that only came from a need or a desire to prove himself to his master who always knew he was worth more than the Jedi Council saw Anakin as. Obi-Wan defended Anakin, always made excuses for him. Obi-Wan knew about Padme, and for Anakin's sake, never spoke a word of it. All his love, time, energy, and patience for the boy and investment had blown up in his face. As their blue blades flashed and spat against one another on the lava-ridden planet, Obi-Wan wasn't looking into Anakin's yellow eyes and seeing an enemy that needed to be slain for the good of the Republic. He was looking at his brother, whom he had failed. Because of Obi-Wan, Anakin had killed nearly all of the Jedi, personally slain younglings, and brought the Republic to its knees. He betrayed his wife and jeopardized his own children. He had committed countless atrocities, and to Obi-Wan, this was his fault. This is explained in the novelization to be the thoughts going on in Kenobi's mind, and focusing on these thoughts while fighting Anakin was making Obi-Wan severely weakened. But again, how did he win? How did he overcome this? The novelization explained that Obi-Wan Kenobi had to let go. The novelization tells us that despite everything mentioned earlier, Obi-Wan decided to let it all go to the will of the Force. He lets go of his feelings towards everything that had happened, towards Anakin entirely. Kenobi had an attachment, and there came from him a moment in a duel where Obi-Wan finally cut that attachment off and let go completely. Obi-Wan could never defeat Anakin. He could never cut the limbs off of his brother and leave him to die, but he could to Darth Vader. Obi-Wan had to do what needed to be done, even using a forbidden lightsaber technique against Vader to get the job done. Kenobi let go and realized that all he had to do was to lure the overconfident and tunnel-visioned Vader right to the high ground, and then the triple Maquis, a move forbidden by the Jedi, but a favorite of the Sith. The Maquis was a move that used circular motions of the blade to sever off all of the limbs in a single stroke, a move that was fitting against Vader. Vader had used the Jedi techniques against them in order to cripple and destroy their order. It was only fair that Kenobi use a Sith trick to do the same to him. But Obi-Wan had not given himself to darkness, only to the will of the Force. The novel tells us that Obi-Wan knew it would be a merciful thing to go down to the bank and kill Anakin. But Obi-Wan was not feeling merciful. He was simply feeling calm and clear. He knew that to go down to the beach would risk time that he did not have. Padme was dying, and Obi-Wan saw the Emperor's shuttle was about to land. He would leave Anakin's fate to the will of the Force, just as he had done for the latter half of their duel, letting go of the boy. In summary, the personal attachment to their fight that would have been Vader's advantage was used against him when Kenobi simply removed himself from all attachment to Anakin. This was the key to his victory, and this is specifically what Obi-Wan stated won him the duel. The ability to remain collected and clear while in battle was why Luke Skywalker would later state that Jedi would always be better duelists than Sith. While this is subjective and highly debatable, we can't deny that it definitely worked in this scenario between the battle of two brothers and the duel of heroes. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? And what are your thoughts on Obi-Wan's explanation for his victory? As always, may the Force be with you, and I hope you visit our archives again soon.